Police interrupt black man's lunch thinking he stole until the owner calls him Cofounder. "Why's it always us?" he muttered, fork frozen midair. The officer didn't answer, just stared, hand on his belt, eyes scanning the man's plate like it held contraband. Marcus Reed had known peace, or at least the illusion of it. At 42, he had co-founded June's Table, a warm, soulful restaurant nestled between luxury boutiques and glass office towers in downtown Atlanta. It wasn't just a place for food, it was a community, a second home for many, and a quiet rebellion against everything the world had once told him he couldn't be. That Wednesday afternoon, Marcus had arrived earlier than usual to enjoy a quiet lunch at Table 7, near the front window where the sunlight poured in like honey. His suit jacket hung on the back of the chair, his phone face down on the table. The smell of garlic butter and rosemary chicken filled the air. Nina Simone played softly over the speakers. It was, for once, a perfect moment, until the door opened and shattered it. Two officers, one younger, twitchy, and the other older, silent and stiff. They moved with that strange, heavy confidence that only those carrying a badge and assumptions wore like armor. "Sir," the younger one said, stepping closer, "we got a call about a man fitting your description. You mind showing us your ID?" Marcus didn't flinch. He looked up, met the officer's eyes, and gave a slow, measured smile, not of amusement, but of recognition. He'd met that tone before, in airports, parking lots, elevators, places where being black wasn't a color, but a threat. "I'm having lunch," he said evenly, "at my own restaurant." The younger cop chuckled. "Is that so?" He glanced at the neatly folded napkin, the plated chicken thigh. "And you paid for that?" The silence that followed was not stillness. It was fire pressed behind teeth. From the back of the restaurant, a voice pierced through, not loud, but sharp like broken glass. "Marcus," she called. It was June. June Godfrey, 70, no nonsense, and co-owner of this place. She walked like she had fought for every brick in the building because she had. She didn't come rushing. She didn't need to. She came like Judgment Day. "Officers," she said, her voice cold and clipped, "why are you harassing my co-founder during his lunch?" There it was. A pause. A crack in the illusion of control. The older officer cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we received a report." "I don't care what you received," she snapped. "What you're doing right now is racial profiling. You see a black man eating alone in a nice place and assume he doesn't belong. Do better." The younger officer flushed. "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that," June hissed. "He built this place. Every table, every recipe, every staff member here is because of him. Now you either apologize or you leave." The restaurant was dead silent. A spoon clinked softly somewhere in the back. Marcus didn't move. He watched them, still seated, still poised. They left. No apology. No glance back. 20 minutes passed before Marcus touched his food again. June sat across from him, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't have to fight like that anymore," she said softly. "I don't fight," he replied. "I endure." She reached out, hand over his. "Not here. Not in our house." He smiled, the first real one that day. But the damage, as always, had already settled in his bones. June stood, slowly. "I'll be in the back. Tell Rosa to bring you a fresh plate. That one's gone cold." Marcus nodded but didn't eat. The food had flavor. Sure, his recipes always did, but taste required more than a working tongue. It required calm, trust, safety. And in this moment, none of that was left on his plate. He looked out the window, saw people passing most unaware, some peeking in after watching the scene unfold. A few snapped photos. Others just whispered and kept walking. A middle-aged white woman stared at him too long, her expression unreadable, before turning away as if ashamed of herself. This wasn't new. This wasn't shocking. But it was exhausting. He picked up his phone. Dozens of messages, staff chat blowing up, a couple news alerts already pinging his name. Of course someone had filmed it. Of course someone had uploaded it. A message from Lonnie, his niece. "Uncle M, I saw the video. You okay? And from Jamal, his old college roommate. Man, I'm pissed, but not surprised. He didn't reply. He just locked the phone again and leaned back in the chair. His reflection caught faintly in the window. 42, salt in the beard, suit tailored to perfection. And still, suspect. He remembered being 16, walking through a hardware store in Macon, Georgia, while a security guard followed him from aisle to aisle. No confrontation, just presence, that quiet surveillance that said, "We see you. We don't trust you." And now, decades later, nothing had changed. The buildings were newer, the suits sharper, but the suspicion? Timeless. That evening, the restaurant buzzed. Not just with orders and waitstaff moving, but with something else: tension, energy. Customers came in whispering about the incident. Some asked to take pictures with Marcus. Others avoided his gaze, unsure whether to say "I'm sorry" or just tip extra and hope it counts. He stayed mostly in the back, working quietly. He didn't want to be the face of anything today, but he was the face. His face was already trending. At 7:15 p.m., June called him into the office. Her reading glasses sat low on her nose, and her laptop screen was open to a local news site. There it was, the headline: "Racial profiling at local eatery. Co-founder mistaken for criminal." Below it, the video, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Crystal clear audio. Marcus's calm. The officer's condescension. June's fury. A ready-made viral narrative. She turned to him. "You want me to make a statement?" He shook his head. "Not yet." June folded her arms. "Why not? You want the cops to spin it first." "I want to think before I talk," he said. "Because whatever I say, it's not just about me. It's about every black man eating alone tomorrow." She nodded slowly. "Then think fast." The mayor's office already called. That night he couldn't sleep. He sat in his apartment with the lights off, scrolling through the hundreds, no, thousands of comments. Some supportive, many angry, a few hateful, the usual mix. But one stood out. From someone named @TruthUnchained. "Imagine building something beautiful and still being treated like you stole it. This is America." Marcus stared at it for a long time. He whispered the words under his breath. "This is America." Then he opened his notes app and began to write. The next morning, a press conference was held outside June's table. The steps were crowded: staff members, local activists, reporters. A few police cruisers were parked discreetly across the street. Marcus stepped up to the mic, dressed not in a suit, but in a black t-shirt with 3 simple words in white. "I belong here." The silence was deep. Then the cameras clicked. Dozens. 100. He took a breath, then spoke. "I won't thank you for being here, because this shouldn't require your attention. A man having lunch in peace shouldn't be national news." Pause. Let the words land. "But it is. Because I am black. And because suspicion follows me like my shadow. Not because I did anything wrong, but because this country still hasn't learned how to let black people exist without justification." Murmurs. A few nods. Some teary eyes. "I built this place with June. With my hands, my vision, and my grandmother's gumbo recipe. And yet, 2 police officers walked in here and assumed I was stealing what I created." He let the silence hang again. It was a weight he was used to. "Let me be clear. This wasn't just about me. This happens to black people every day in stores, schools, airports, even parks. And sometimes, it ends in handcuffs. Or bullets." He looked up. "This time it ended with a video. And now you care." A few gasps. Some claps. A single hum from an old woman in the back. "I don't need sympathy. I need change. Real policies. Better training. And officers who don't see color as a cause for suspicion." A deep breath. "This is not a moment. It's a mirror. What you do with it, that's on you." He stepped back. June joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Together, they turned and walked back inside. The applause that followed wasn't loud, but it was real. Later that day, Marcus sat with Detective Alvarez, one of the few officers he trusted. She was Latina, mid-40s, had grown up in the Bronx, and had once told him that her badge meant protection, not permission. "They're doing an internal review," she said. "But you and I both know how that goes." He nodded. "They'll say they followed procedure." "Because the procedure is the problem," she said flatly. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she added, "You should sue." "I might," Marcus replied. "But lawsuits don't heal anything." She looked at him for a long time. "No, but maybe they force people to listen." He nodded again. He was tired of talking, tired of being reasonable, tired of having to turn pain into parables. That weekend, June's table was packed. Not because people were hungry, but because they were watching. Some came to support. Others came for selfies. A few came just to see the guy from the video. Marcus worked the floor anyway. Not because he wanted to, but because it mattered. A small boy, maybe 10 years old, tugged on his sleeve. Black skin, bright eyes. "Are you really the boss?" the kid asked. Marcus knelt beside him. "I helped build this place, yeah." The boy grinned. "That's cool. My dad said they thought you were bad. But he said they were wrong." Marcus smiled. "Your dad sounds smart." The kid nodded. "He said we gotta own things, so nobody can take them from us." Marcus's throat tightened. "He's right." The boy's mom called him back. He waved, and the moment passed. But Marcus stood still, staring at the floor. "So nobody can take them from us." God, if only it were that simple. 3 weeks later, the city buzz had cooled, but the embers still glowed. The department issued a carefully worded statement. While no laws were violated, the incident has revealed areas where departmental training must improve. In other words, we're not sorry, but we might act like we learned something. The 2 officers were placed on administrative leave. Paid. Marcus didn't feel victory. He felt tired. Again. But something unexpected happened. The city council invited him to speak not as a victim, but as a community builder. He went not to point fingers, but to tell the truth. "I don't hate the officers," he said, standing in the chamber's echoing hall. "But I hate the system that trained them to look at me and see theft instead of ownership, crime instead of contribution, fear instead of family." Some in the room looked uncomfortable. "Good. I didn't co-found a restaurant to be seen as exceptional. I did it because Black excellence should be normal, should be expected, shouldn't need to be explained to every damn person who walks through the door." He paused. "If they had asked who I was, they would have found my name on the business license. They would have seen the wall with my picture next to June's. They would have realized this place, this corner of Atlanta, is something we built to defy the narrative." Later, as he stepped outside, a councilwoman pulled him aside. Black, late 50s, wise eyes. "Keep telling the truth," she whispered. "Because we're all waiting for someone brave enough to say it first." Back at the restaurant, the culture shifted. Subtly but definitely. The staff began wearing pins on their aprons that read, "I belong here." Customers asked where to buy them. June turned the idea into a fundraiser for local anti-racism programs. Within days, they had orders from Seattle to Savannah. Local schools reached out, asking if Marcus would come speak. He declined most. But one request from a high school in South Fulton caught his eye. The principal wrote, "Our students watched your video." For many, it was the first time they saw someone like them not lose their temper and still be powerful. That part hit him. He went. The school gym smelled like sneakers and cafeteria pizza, but the room was packed. Hundreds of kids, mostly black and brown, chattering, laughing, curious. Marcus took the mic with no notes. "You know what they don't tell you?" he asked. "That sometimes dignity feels like rage with the volume turned down." Some students laughed. Others leaned in. He continued, "I've been called well-spoken so many times I started wondering what they expected me to sound like. More laughter now. Deeper. Relatable. But what matters," he said, pacing slowly across the floor, "is not how they see you, it's how you see yourself. When those officers walked in that day, I didn't shrink. Not because I'm brave, but because I've had practice. A student in the front row raised his hand. But weren't you scared? Marcus paused. Always, he said honestly. Being black in America means learning to carry fear like a second skin. But it doesn't mean letting it lead. Silence. Deep and full. You get to write your own story, he said. Even when they keep trying to scribble over it. Outside the school, he sat in his car for a long time, engine off. He looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. He thought of his father, a bus driver who'd once been cuffed for driving suspiciously in his own neighborhood. He thought of his mother who taught 5th grade for 30 years and always kept her head high, even when white parents asked for a different teacher. He thought of legacy and what it costs. A month after the incident, the mayor's office held a unity roundtable. Marcus was invited as a guest speaker. June didn't come. She said politics gave her hives, but she told him to burn it down gently. At the round table were police chiefs, city leaders, business owners. Most spoke in vague platitudes. When it was Marcus's turn, he stood up without a mic. I didn't ask to be part of this story, he said. But now that I am, I'm going to finish it properly. He looked at the police chief. I want real reform, not more conversations. I want policies that hold your people accountable, not just videos that go viral. I want to stop being an exception and start being the rule. Someone clapped, then another, and then the room rose with him. Change, of course, would be slow, maybe even glacial, but the needle had moved. And Marcus? He had decided something quietly in his soul. He was going to run for city council, not because he loved politics, but because he loved his people, and someone had to do the damn job right. The next spring, June's table celebrated its 10th anniversary. The place was packed with family, friends, loyal customers, and news cameras, of course. Marcus stood on a small wooden stage built just for the occasion. June beside him, staff gathered around. He held the mic, this time smiling. 10 years ago, he began. We opened these doors hoping to serve good food. We had no idea we'd also serve hope. Laughter. Applause. But the truth is, every table here holds more than a plate. It holds a story, a struggle, a second chance. He looked around. Some of you know what it's like to be doubted, to be watched, to be judged before you even speak. But today, I say this, we're done shrinking to make others comfortable. He raised a glass of sweet tea. To every person who's ever been interrupted, dismissed, or profiled, may you always find a seat at the table you built. Cheers erupted. Later that night, after the last guest left, Marcus sat alone at table 7. The same seat, same view, same old sun sliding down behind the skyline. June walked by, wiping down a counter. She paused. You ready to go? He nodded. Yeah, just remembering. She smiled. You're allowed. They locked up together. Lights off, doors shut, the hum of the city rolling on outside. As they stepped onto the sidewalk, Marcus turned to her. Thank you, he said. For what? For always showing up when it matters. June shrugged. We take care of our own. They stood in silence. Then she smirked. Next time they try to accuse you of stealing something, make sure it's something more exciting. Like a yacht. Marcus laughed real, deep, from the chest. And for the first time in months, he felt light again. He felt whole. Because in a world that still questioned his place, he had answered it louder than ever before. I belong here, and now everyone knew it.